My name is Catherine Nill. I'm a technical account manager with Synology. I actually have a background in both as an audio engineer and some technical experience working in development programming. And before I came to Synology, I was actually deploying our products as a in professional workflows with medium to small sized production facilities doing live online editing on our Synology NASs, and then Synology picked me up. But we have our amazing guests here. We have PhotoJoseph.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm PhotoJoseph. I'm a content creator, filmmaker. Most of my focus is on video content creation itself. So basically I tell people that I make videos about making videos.
Gotta have that. And we have Brian Davids from Echo Entertainment. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hey, I'm Brian Davids. I'm running the technical operations for Echo Entertainment. My main focus has always been IT. So I'm going to talk about Synology and how that helps me out. But yeah, basically we have very large clients with massive amounts of data that we have to deal with. And so Synology really helps me out with that process. So that's where we're going to go.
Absolutely. All right. Let me just do a quick little pitch spiel about Synology. So we've actually been around from 2000. We started off as a software company, and then we decided to start building our own network-attached storage. A lot of people are familiar with us for our Home Plus units, which are fantastic little home servers, and you can actually get some of our units that you can get a 10 gig networking on there and get enough performance to do your own solo editing at home and collect all of that data in one location. But we have large enterprise units. We have our HD 6500, which can go to 4 petabytes of data in one rack, as well as flash solutions. So some really cool stuff all across the board. But let's kick over here. We're going to talk about storage solutions and what we have here. So Joseph, why don't you tell us about your history with storage and what that workflow existed like?
Sure. So when it comes to NAS storage, for me, my first introduction to NAS was one of your competitors' products, sorry, but it was a really quite a low cost budget. I'd call it a dumb NAS. It didn't really do a whole lot, and it was just a 1 gig connection. It was essentially just a really, really, really big hard drive. That's why I bought it. A place to store my archives, to back everything up to. I don't even remember, maybe it was 40, 50, 60 terabytes, something like that. But it was just a big, dumb hard drive that I could back everything up to. And then somewhere along the line, I started wanting to edit from the NAS. That was this idea that sounded really cool. If I give a 10 gig connection, then I've got a really fast, huge storage bay. I never have to shuttle files back and forth because like most of us, you spend most of your time with files on a local hard drive, maybe on a direct attached RAID. And then when a project's done or that fills up, you got to move it somewhere else. Maybe then you have to move it somewhere else again. It's this constant moving of media. So the idea of having one massive source of data that I never have to move things around from is very, very attractive. But the only way to do that on a NAS is to have that 10 gig connection. So that's how I found Synology, looking for that 10 gig solution. And that has turned into a really, really cool part of my workflow. And I want to give away everything now. I know we're going to talk about it more later, but a big part of it is not only having that direct attached, well, no, I guess not direct, the network attached NAS at 10 gig, but all the other things that I can do with this Synology that allow me to work remotely, work with a laptop, take things on the road, and have zero friction between the data that is in my rack back in the studio, which is on the other side of the world, and wherever I happen to be at any moment. It's really, really awesome. And again, we're going to get into all of that.
Absolutely. Brian, so before you started working with network attached storage, what was your storage workflow like?
Yeah, so for a long time, we had fiber channel networks with dedicated providers, very expensive to maintain, licensing fees, all the nightmares that come along with that. Plus, when we ever needed to add, we had to go right back to that same storage provider. So at some point, I decided to start building my own systems. I've been working in IT since 1978, so been around for a little bit. Started building Unix servers, started building Windows servers, and that worked. But it wasn't awesome. They were basically SMB boxes, right? I could get my data. I can put it on there. Again, I was probably at 1 gig at that point. And, I needed the need for, more space, more bandwidth, and easier infrastructure. I'm an IT guy. I can do this stuff all day long. I don't want to. I also run vMix streaming and help guys out in the truck, and I do media management. I've got a lot of other responsibilities. And so finding a product, finding a solution that would allow me to be able to manage multiple systems. And I have over 100 terabyte Synologies in the office. To manage all of those things is really critical to me. So I tried some other providers, which I won't mention, but I finally bought a Synology NAS. I think it was the one before the 1820.
The 1621 Plus?
Yeah, might have been.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got my original version of it. I played with it, and I'm like, this is great. I can build these things out quickly. I can have my users using SMB resources quickly. And that's how I initially started. Then I started digging into the software that's on these things. And that's what Joseph just alluded to. We'll get into that, but these aren't just file sharing boxes. There's so much. And it's helped me to eliminate the use of Dropbox and all sorts of other things we'll talk about. But long and short is I finally stumbled on Synology, realized how amazing the product was, realized how easy my life was going to be as an IT manager. I've got a 1522 at my house now, and I've been working on my personal photos and personal videos, and it's amazing. It's changing my life, literally, because I don't have to stress out about storage management, and it's a product I trust.
I need that as a quote. Saved your life. That's a fantastic one to have. Marketing will love that. So now we're going to talk about some optimized workflow. So we migrated away from this disk system, and we alluded to it a little bit. But Joseph, why don't you tell us a little bit of like we got started like building one kind of a solution, and then that changed, and then we were able to pivot. And you have a whole bunch of other cool projects that you're working on. So tell us about all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll kind of go through the history of how I started using the Synology NAS and where it's evolved to today. And it's the most recent change is actually very recent. Catherine was just helping me out with it right before I came out here. But when I first set it up, I already had in place so I work in DaVinci Resolve. I'm working with the Blackmagic Cloud system. I've got my libraries hosted on the Blackmagic Cloud, and I work with editors all around the world. I have an editor in one country. I've got someone who works on localization in another country. And so we all work together and have access to the same project. Super cool. Blackmagic has a storage solution, a NAS basically, that is small. It's the lower cost one is quite small, but it was enough to have a couple projects on at a time. My projects would go there. And then once I was done with that, that's when I first started moving things over to the Synology. Because it was 10 gig, I could still access the projects. Before, when I had the older NAS, as I archived stuff, if I needed to resurrect a project, which happens fairly often, I have to copy it all off the NAS at 1 gig, which was really slow. I have to copy it somewhere else. So now I had this solution where I could just archive over to there, but still access it. Cool. But then it started to go, it got to a point where I'm like, well, why am I even using the Blackmagic piece in here? What benefit is that adding to me to this workflow? And one of the things that Blackmagic recently added was their own cloud storage, where before, if you're not familiar with their system, when you're working with the Blackmagic cloud project, if you have a project that you're working on and you're generating proxies, those proxies can get synced via Dropbox or via Google Drive to, Dropbox or Google Drive, and then your remote editor can access those to access them. Cool. Works really well. But then they started adding their own cloud system, their own cloud storage, and it's actually a lot more seamless than the Dropbox integration, so I switched over to that, and I've been loving it. But that really made me go, I don't need the Blackmagic NAS anymore. So now I can start using the Synology one completely. So I switched over to that, started using that. It worked out perfectly. But there's a problem that I had that's kind of inherent to this Resolve workflow where I'm on a laptop primarily. My main machine is a 16-inch MacBook Pro M whatever. And I'm not always at my desk. But if I'm at my desk, I'm plugged into my network. I've got my storage on the NAS and it's there and I can access it perfectly. But as soon as I go on the road, I no longer have access to that original footage. And I don't even have access to the proxy because it's the computer that the project started from. And this is a problem with the Blackmagic system. They kind of need to work on this. But right now, I don't have access to my own proxies unless I either get another computer or theoretically, I guess I could create a whole new user on my computer and access it, but that's just stupid. That's not how I wanted to do it. So I wanted to figure out how can I get my original footage. And this is where this whole thing with Synology Drive Sync, Synology Drive came in. It basically creates a partition on my hard drive that it mirrors the data from the NAS to my internal storage. And I can set, whatever sizes I want. And I see when I look at my mirrored, share, what is it called? The individual, like my project drive It's
the team folder.
the team folder.
Yeah.
So I look at my individual team folder. I see all of my project media, which is terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of it, but it's not all stored locally. But I can click on any one of them and say, make this one local. So in an active current project, it's local. Anything I add into there, it's actually running off of my SSD, but it's simultaneously almost instantly syncing over to the NAS. So it's all backed up there. It's also on the SSD. I can unplug my hard drive, my computer, and go anywhere, and I have my original full resolution footage, zero friction. And at any point or some point when the project's done, I just kind of boot it off of my hard drive, just click on it and say make offline or whatever it is, and it clears the cache, dumps it off of there. And at that point, I will likely go into Resolve and reconnect it to the one on the NAS. So it's always looking for the native one on the NAS, but even that's not necessary, but it will make it cleaner in the long run. But that's like 3 clicks and I'm done. So it's a really, really cool workflow that gives me the ability to have my laptop with my full resolution originals, which can be tens or hundreds of gigabytes worth of stuff with me at all times for any active project, but I still have the full convenience of the NAS, which is absolutely huge. That is, for me, that is a total game changer of how I work.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love hearing that and like the journey that we kind of worked on to get through that. And
yeah, it took a little while to get there. You're going to figure it out, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, right?
Yeah. And like we still, we have conversations about some other stuff that we're kind of looking at too to implement over time. We have a whole bunch of other software features. But let's go ahead and talk with Brian about optimized workflow as well as data security and ownership, because that's really important in what you do, as well as you have a really cool workflow with how your editorial works, and how the events that you do and how you just streamline that. It's so cool. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my needs are a little bit different than Joseph's here. So for us, my main job on a job site is to get the media from the trucks and get it stored somewhere. In some cases, we take Synologies out on the road with us. I'll take little units out to smaller clients. We do the World Series of Poker. The director is sitting right back there, Dave G. For that project, I take 330 terabytes of storage on site. We're recording as much as 43 terabytes a day of content. That project, when it comes back to Echo, we've got to have editors working on it. And I've got an editor in Florida. I could have editors actually anywhere. We're using Jump Desktop to pop back into the office so they have full access to the storage. What's sick about these systems, though, is that these 3 rack mount units, we're doing the full 16 camera multi-channel edits on the live media from remotely and on site over a 10 gig network, and it works flawlessly. I don't get any complaints about delays or problems that's happening with the storage. It just flows seamlessly as we go. So it gives my editors the ability to do their job, do it efficiently. We're dealing with 16 cameras across 6 edit bays. So it's a ton of content that's being moved, and we just don't have any issues with it. So it's been a really fantastic workflow. Other projects will bring media back, and then I put it on storage for editors to use or just for archiving purposes. I have one Synology NAS that I use dedicated for MP4 versions of these things, proxies, if you will. I do that with an 8-channel WAV file, and then I can give clients access to it. So can't tell you how many times we get back from a shoot the next day. It's like, oh, can I have access to that footage? Yes, you can. All I have to do is go into Synology Drive. I create a link to the folder or create a link to the file, and they're downloading the video. I had a pretty cool experience the other day. I was on another job, and another client reached out and they're like, hey, do you happen to have this thing from, 2016 footage? I have no idea. I'll go look. So I jumped into Synology Drive, did a quick search. Shockingly, it's there. Create the link, send it to them. That whole thing took me a minute. So I've eliminated Dropbox. All of my shares come directly from Synology now using Google Drive. And it makes it super easy for distribution. So clients are happy, I'm happy, and everything happens really fast because we're doing everything locally, right? I don't have to worry about taking a file and uploading it to a server somewhere. I literally just have the file, I share it. It's that simple.
Absolutely. And you brought up a really interesting point there about both of you with Dropbox and these other cloud solutions. It's really nice that you can have that ownership of data. So you have it all locally. That way, for any reason, I mean, for a scenario, Dropbox, some other companies ended up changing the way that they operate. And some people weren't super thrilled with that, so they started looking at this network attached storage. But that's not to say that we can't complement existing services. We do have application stacks that can synchronize on your NAS with cloud providers, so Acton can be a part of your workflow. In fact, Joseph, that was part of your workflow originally too.
Using Dropbox?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I still have, so my entire Synology NAS is mirrored to Dropbox. Dropbox used to have a unlimited data plan. Basically, once you had over 5 business accounts, you had unlimited storage. You just called them up and said, hey, I need a little bit more, and they gave you another 10 terabytes. They stopped that now, unfortunately, which really kind of cramps this whole plan that I have of always having this data backed up to the cloud for, it was amounted about $800 a year for essentially unlimited cloud storage. So it was great to be able to just have my whole NAS mirrored to Dropbox. I know it's always there. That was my third destination, my backup. No longer the case where I'm, still grandfathered in for a little while, but it's not for new users anymore. So, so that Dropbox becomes less and less interesting at that point. And now with these new integrations like you were just talking about as well, the NAS essentially becomes my own personal Dropbox. I can create a link to it. Fortunately, I have a fast enough connection. My studio's got 500 up, so I've got enough connection where people can access it. It's making Dropbox less and less interesting.
Yeah, if I could piggyback off of that, I'm a control freak, so I want to control my data. I want to know where it is. I want to back it up. I want to maintain it. I just had somebody that asked me the other day, they're like, oh, we're starting this production. We want to do everything in the cloud. It's like, why? Why do you want to do everything in the cloud? And they couldn't answer the question because it's not valid. Like, you can go ahead and put your data in AWS. You can put your data wherever the heck you want, but you're going to pay a huge amount of money to pull that data back off because they charge you for that. Wasabi doesn't. They're downstairs. But there's still a price to pay for that storage. Like with the Synology, my investment is literally the box and the drives I choose to put in it. That's mine. I own it. And if I want cloud functionality, it's built in. So it's my, personal cloud, if you will. I really hate the cloud word, by the way. But I can do whatever I need to do completely under my own control. I don't have to go to another party. I don't have to worry about someday we put up an image that is going to ban us from their site. I have control over my content. I back up my content. I share my content, and I do it the way I want to do it with a lot of flexibility and control. I can limit who sees what. We have a tremendous amount of control.
Absolutely. And you also brought up, with both of the backups and everything and ownership of the data, there's also the data security aspect, which is really integral, especially these days with all of these attack vectors and everything coming through, making sure you have these 3-2-1 backup strategies, which is another advantage of synchronizing with the cloud. You have that offsite backup. And so we're not we have our own cloud actually that we do integrate with our products as well. But we play nice with all sorts of people. But I know that we had started the conversation. The nice thing is, like, you get into this production workflow, and you can use this with existing production devices as well to do a disaster recovery stack. I know that we were talking about doing backup scenarios with hyper backup to be able to have like our version compressed to deduplicated file that's all just ready to go for restoral, even offline out of a NAS. You can use a restoral program with that. I think we were all talking about Snapshot at some point and working on that sim.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
So I'm playing with a lot of stuff on my personal NAS at home that I haven't deployed yet completely at Echo because I haven't needed it. Really at Echo, I need an SMB server with the ability for Dropbox, but I'm going to start adding Snapshots. Snapshots gives us some security benefits because it's literally taking, I'm going to say it, snapshots.
Yeah.
It's taking snapshots of your data. So if somebody was to come along and cock up one of my files, delete a file, God forbid a ransomware attack or something like that, I can roll those things back and restore my data before that problem happened. So snapshots are incredibly powerful. And I think this really kind of leads into Synology NAS is NAS software, but it's so much more. There are so many applications that you can load. There's container managers, so you can load Docker containers for different products or packages, software packages. It is a whole universe of tools that you can utilize in your business or at home, and it just keeps unraveling, and I keep seeing more and more stuff, and it's fantastic.
And I know that we keep on I apologize that we keep on like bringing up the product. It is, what we're talking about and using here. But one of the other key features I want to give away is that collaborative network attached storage, I feel, is important because having people work in the same location that you can own is super integral. And it does bring all of these different software features. So I'm going to ask, out of all of the different applications, we'll do a quick one because we're starting to come up on time. What is your favorite? If you have to pick out all of the functionality of the units, like what's your favorite software to use?
Would be the drive now. Synology drive. The fact that I can have my same data selectively synced to my local hard drive and not even have to think about it. I never have to worry. I choose that top level folder for a project and I say everything inside of this folder, no matter what happens, it's always there. That's just amazing.
Yeah. Brian, your absolute favorite?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Synology Drive as well. My favorite thing, honestly, is building one of these things out, though, from a hardware standpoint. They're so easy to build in, so easy to access. Put in hard drives, add some memory, add a 10 gig card. I can build a Synology system ground up in 20 minutes. Another 15 minutes, the software's loaded, and you're ready to go. So there's some RAID 5 building and technical stuff. But the long and short is you can get from nothing to an operating system in about 45 minutes, which I think is fantastic. They're quiet. They work really well. But yeah, from software standpoint, my phone in my pocket, every photo I take here at NAB is automatically getting uploaded to my NAS at home, which, by the way, is just sitting on a cable modem. So with their Quick Connect software, you have immediate access to your system. And that's the setup. I just went through this the other day. Setting these up is so great. Synology literally holds your hand through the entire process. Let's do this now. Let's do this now. Let's give you a quick connect ID so you can connect to this machine. You walk through that software and you're done. Now you can go ahead and harden it. You can do all the other things you want to do as an IT person, but the basics of getting a system up and running and being able to access it remotely, being able to store your photos on there, store your videos on there, and access the stuff remotely is instant, and it's right out of the box.
Absolutely.
I want to add one more thing to it, to the drive aspect. There's apps for iOS and iPad OS, and I would assume Android as well. So like getting ready for NAB, I'm doing a lot of speaking presentations here, teaching, and I've got a class on editing on iPad. And so I needed some high resolution footage that I could copy down. Well, at first I was just going to start copying files over, but then I realized, hold on a minute, I can just install Drive on the iPad. And once it's installed, connect it to my NAS, and now I can just open up the Apple Drive app, the iOS Drive app, and from within there, you see the Synology Drive. Then I go in there and I can download whatever I want. Look at everything that's on my NAS, every single file on my NAS. I go, okay, give me these 3, cache these locally. Then I open up Final Cut or whatever on the iPad, and those files are right there, and I can access them just like that. I don't have to copy anything manually. It's just there. Just tap it, and it downloads. Super cool.
And it's literally my favorite thing to talk about all day. It's probably my favorite application that we have, especially because there's also the feature Drive Share Sync. One of the cool workflows that I talk about is, say, you have streaming content creators. You can actually be, Brian, you were playing around with this too. You can actually record to your Synology Drive folder on your NAS. And a unique feature is it actually opens up the container on your NAS and then starts filling that data right away. It doesn't wait for the file to finish. It just starts streaming the data to your NAS. And that can also then synchronize using our Drive Share Sync to another NAS offsite. So you could be a streamer recording to Drive or directly to your NAS, and you have that same folder synchronizing with your editor somewhere across the world, and they're able to, as soon as you in-stream, they can start editing and put together a VOD for it. Yeah,
I had a situation with X Games. We were setting up Synology servers for them in their houses, and they needed a bunch of data that I had at Echo. We set up the Drive Sync or syncing between those two units, also just built in. And there's no licensing fees here either, by the way. So we set up the sync between those two things, and it just moved the entire 20 terabytes of data from my NAS to their NAS. They had slower connections. It took a bit, but it got done. And I didn't have to put things on a drive and FedEx it across the country. It just did it in the background automatically, and then they had their data. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I love that idea. This isn't something that I use or need, but I love knowing that if I had a project that was big enough where, let's say I was going to hire a colorist somewhere else in the world that needed the full resolution files, right? They can't work on the proxies. They need the originals. That instead of having to constantly upload files manually, that they could just set up a Synology NAS in their studio and we can make our sync to each other. And anytime anybody makes a change on either one of them, it shows up on the other. That's pretty awesome. I don't need that now, but maybe in the future I will. And I love knowing that that's there.
Absolutely. Okay. So we are coming up on time. We're not going to do a Q&A. What we are going to do is you can find us. We're going to be hanging out in this area so you can talk with us, get a card, and like schedule meetings, and talk with the technical account manager to help build a custom solution for you. But another thing that I feel like a lot of people are going to be excited about is, we are giving away one of our 2-bay units and 2 4-terabyte hard drives. So you'll actually be able to test this out. My lovely assistant Dave is going to bring this up to the stage here. So here's the, all together. So we have our DS723 Plus, super cool little unit that you can throw 2 drives in there. You can add a 5-bay expansion unit and get 7 total drives on there and a 10 gig card and 32 gigs of RAM. Anybody not get a ticket? Okay. All right, Dave, let's go ahead and throw it in. Oh, okay. Production wants a NAS too.
Hey, can we get in on this? I'm joking.
We'll hook you up. I promise.
Oh, Pierce is on it.
All right. My lovely, Vanna here. Can you go ahead and give me a number for a lucky individual? Okay. Okay. So, number 347762. Hey! Congratulations. All right. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming to this talk. It was really fantastic to have you all here. Please hit us up, grab our information. Please follow Joseph on YouTube, PhotoJoseph.
Right, PhotoJoseph everywhere.
Absolutely.
I follow him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian, any socials, anything you want to pitch?
No, not really. I've got business cards in my pocket if you want to get a hold of me. And we'll just go from there. You can always go to echoentertainment.com if you want to see what we're doing there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. We had the wrong number. It was 347762.
Going once, going twice.
Okay. Whoop. Ah. Okay. 347756.
There we go.
756. All right.
This is awesome. That's the director, by the way, of World Series of Poker, and I've been trying to get him to get a Synology for his house. So that's
not rigged. I swear.
It's not rigged. Not rigged.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for production for killing it. We love you all, and we'll talk with y'all later.